Hey everyone, welcome back. Today, we're diving deep into a story that ripped through Washington like a shockwave. Not about politics. Not really. It was about power, about ownership, and about a chilling hidden truth that unraveled live on national television. Picture this. Washington, D.C., a congressional hearing room. The air crackled with a tension you could taste. Reporters leaned forward, cameras blinking red. Then the doors creaked open. He walked in, not a politician, but a storm in charcoal gray. Denzel Washington. No smile, just pure, unfiltered presence. His footsteps hit the marble like a slow, inevitable countdown. He moved smooth and deliberate toward the chair, staring down the man who once ruled from the Oval Office. Donald Trump sat there, slumped, a smirk plastered on his face. That signature smugness. Denzel took a seat. No laptop, just one single white envelope on the table. Corners frayed, seal pressed in deep, angry crimson. A secret dragged through decades. He adjusted the mic, calm, controlled. Then he looked up, expression cut from steel. Mr. Trump. Denzel's voice was smooth as midnight jazz, but sharp enough to leave scars. You propose gutting $4.2 billion from federal health care for low-income mothers. I'm curious. Did your team pull that number from the Congressional Budget Office, or just from a cocktail napkin at Mar-a-Lago? Trump chuckled, hollow and weak. You sound upset, Mr. Washington. Don't get emotional, big guy. But Denzel didn't blink. He tapped his pen once against the table. The sound cracked through the chamber. Then he tilted his head, like a lion sizing up an easy kill. Let me rephrase, Denzel said, deadly precise. His fingers ghosted over the envelope. Would you say the birth of your son was a personal joy or a business investment? The air snapped. Every pair of lungs forgot how to breathe. A staffer dropped a pen. Twitter went nuclear. Fox News glitched. Trump's spine straightened, face twisting tight. What are you suggesting? He barked. Denzel's stare was locked onto the camera, his voice turning slow and dangerous. This hearing is about budgets, Denzel said. But what we're really discussing is profit margins. He let the words linger. And in every home watching, the unspoken question echoed loudest. What kind of father put a dollar tag on his own child's existence? Denzel clicked a remote. The monitor blinked alive, displaying a wire transfer dated March 4th, 2005. Silence. He let the numbers hang. This transfer moved $2.3 million from an offshore account tied to Mr. Trump into a trust labeled Future Foundation. That date matters, Denzel continued, because exactly 7 weeks later, on March 20th, Melania Trump gave birth to a son whose name appeared on over a dozen shell corporations before he ever took his first breath. Trump squirmed. Denzel turned to the chairman. I'd like to submit for the record a sealed deposition from Mr. Alan Duca, former senior accountant at the Trump Organization. A leather-bound folder appeared. In his sworn statement, Mr. Duca confirms, the Future Foundation Trust wasn't meant for charity. It was established as a contingency payout tied to a private contract between Donald Trump and Melania Trump, contingent on the outcome of childbirth. The temperature shifted colder. According to Mr. Duca, Denzel continued, if the child born was male, Melania would receive the full $2.3 million payout. If female, the trust would dissolve. Zero disbursement. A sharp gasp at the air. CNN's cheering morphed. Denzel Washington drops bombshell reproductive contract revelation. Denzel pointed at the monitor. You can debate morality. You can whine about optics. But the money moved. The trust existed, and that clause was signed. Click. Donald J. Trump's digital signature, glowing against the American flag backdrop. Date. February 26, 2005, 4 weeks before Barron's birth. Then, the main screen locked onto a grainy, tired face, Michael Cohen. In early 2005, Cohen's voice rang out. Donald told me he didn't just want a kid. He wanted an heir. A boy. Someone who could wear the name, carry the brand. A product to be molded, packaged, sold to the world. The contract wasn't for care. It was for control. The cash, just a leash. Trump's fists exploded, slamming the table. Lies. Absolute lies. Cohen's convicted liar. But no one looked at Trump. They looked at Denzel. Denzel leaned toward the mic. The real story, he said, isn't what she got paid to say. It's what she was forbidden to speak. He let it breathe. Then Denzel stood, walking with slow, crushing calm toward a display screen. It showed non-disclosure agreement, perpetual silence, Melania's initials underneath, binding, permanent, eternal. It wasn't about silence during a presidency. Denzel said it was silence forever. She wasn't just paid. She was silenced, denied her story, denied her truth, denied her voice about her own child. He clicked the remote again. The monitors flared back to life, revealing an official document from the Zurich Zentrum for Reproductive Medicine. This, Denzel said, crisp and exact, is a sealed medical report dated February 2005. The patient, Melania K. The procedure, in vitro fertilization. The objective, implantation of a genetically selected male embryo. Trump's eyes snapped toward his legal team. They had no words. Denzel stayed planted. One nurse present during the procedure agreed to speak, protected, anonymous, but real. The screen shifted to silhouette, voice distorted. She came in under heavy security, requesting male-only embryo transfer, genetically selected. Denzel clicked to freeze frame. Zurich prohibits gender selection unless medically required. Denzel said, razor sharp. This was approved under a loophole. Psychological distress linked to political future. The application wasn't signed by the patient, but by Donald J. Trump, a full decade before any campaign. This man was investing in the gender of his heir. Denzel reached under his chair, retrieving a red case. He opened it gently. This contract was notarized in New York, January 19, 2005, signed by Donald J. Trump and legal alias Melania K. Line 8, Clause C. Subject agrees to produce male heir. Payment of $5 million and full transfer of estate property shall be granted upon successful delivery. He flipped the next page. A Palm Beach estate map with a red marker. This property was transferred in May 2006 as part of the successful fulfillment clause. He motioned to a legal scholar. This wasn't spousal support, the expert began. This was commission. Legally, this amounts to a womb for wealth agreement. Denzel calmly closed the folder. This wasn't parenting. It never was. This was possession, legacy building, the price of silence, $5 million and a beachfront deed. He unveiled Melania Trump's public schedule for the year after Barron's birth. Blank. Empty. Month after month. Nothing. But new documents flashed. Massive wire transfers, jewelry purchases, estate acquisitions. Nearly $8 million in private expenditures across the same 12 months. She was invisible, but very, very busy. He turned around an easel. A photograph. A baby wrapped in white, days old. Beneath it, a handwritten note. Legacy secured. This wasn't a birth certificate, Denzel said. It was a receipt. If a child becomes a campaign strategy, where does love end and leverage begin? He tapped the screen. An email appeared from DonaldJTrump.org to Sterling PR Strategy. Subject, brand name alignment. Body, brand needs strengthening. Let's align the boy's name to Trump legacy. Think dynasty. Denzel tapped the desk. That email was sent 11 days after Barron Trump was born. While most new fathers worry about diapers, this man was worried about trademarks. A trademark filing appeared. Trump Legacy Initiative. Scope. Digital properties, children's books, political foundations, educational media. All under BT Trump. Denzel raised one brow. BT as in Barron Trump. Gasps rolled. Melania pushed back. She refused to let him be called Donald John Trump Jr. Mark II. Her exact words. He is not a monument. He is my son. He held up the estate trust file to the cameras. Buried in the appendix is this clause. Any child born from the agreement shall have naming rights retained by Trust Holder 1, DJT, for brand continuity and political legacy protection. Denzel snapped the file shut. That's not a name. That's a tagline. Barron Trump was never just a child. He was cast before he could talk, branded before he could walk, trademarked before he could understand what his name even meant. He then showed a web of corporate entities. BT Holdings, Beat Capital, Barron Ventures, Trump Youth Legacy LLC. These aren't hypotheticals. These are active corporate entities built before Barron Trump could walk. Dates flashed. One company formed the day after his second birthday. This wasn't a family, Denzel declared. It was a dynasty project. Then, the most chilling reveal. Denzel retrieved a thin page. This was recovered from an internal email, Melania Trump, March 22nd, 2017. Never sent, just saved. He began to read. There are nights I sit by the door to his room and listen to him breathe. Sometimes I wonder if I birthed a boy or a business plan. Silence. Denzel lifted his eyes, locking onto the camera. This didn't come from an opponent. It was a mother. If my child is born into a contract, what happens to his childhood? How do you raise a child when he was never meant to be one? The screens ignited once more. A calendar, January 21st to April 30th, 2017. Blank, day after day. She was gone, Denzel said. Not abroad, not working, just absent. Click. Security logs from Mar-a-Lago, Wing 4, highlighted in pulsing red. Restricted access, locked from inside. Denzel paused. And for 100 days, Melania Trump did not leave it. He showed the blueprint. Interior surveillance disabled at resident request. For 100 days, the most visible woman in America vanished. What truth locks a woman away when the entire world expects her to speak? He clicked. Grainy visitor logs, Vincent G. Marlowe, highlighted for separate visits. Vincent Marlowe, family law specialist, discreet, high profile. He was there 4 times during lockdown. And trust me, he wasn't advising on interior decor. Screen split. Visitor log on left, sworn testimony on right. Mrs. Trump was consulted with Mr. Marlowe on legal protections, estate shielding, custodial fallback, and, quote, exit planning. Denzel stepped back. He held a thin page. The unsent email. If I leave now, I lose everything, including my son. I would have freedom, but no future. He would stay and I would disappear. She wasn't staying for love, Denzel said. She stayed because leaving meant surrendering more than wealth. It meant surrendering blood. He paused. If escape cost you your child, was there ever freedom to begin with? Click. Grainy surveillance footage. March 24th, 2017. 11:06 p.m. Wing 4, Mar-a-Lago. Melania, in a simple robe, bare feet padding softly. She stood before a door, motionless, one hand resting on the doorknob. Then, slowly, she opened it. The file name, Barron Suite. Infant camera view deactivated. She stood there looking in, frozen in the threshold. Then, without a tear, she closed the door. She didn't run. She didn't cry. But that wasn't peace. That was fear disguised as control. Click. Surveillance authorization form. Request. Disable microphone feeds from Wing 4. Approval. DD. Denzel's tone grew sharper. She didn't choose silence. He did. Click. A transcript. October 28th, 2004. Confidential. Internal use only. Sterling PR strategies. Client. DG. Session. 2004 Presidential Readiness. Denzel's voice cooled, lethal. Melania photographed well. Accented enough to seem exotic. Obedient enough to never upstage. Eastern elegance, controlled, non-disruptive. More lines. Needs polish. Low political risk. Ideal First Lady optics. Denzel's voice cut through. They weren't choosing a partner. They were casting a role. She's not Hillary. She won't challenge the podium. That's the point. They didn't choose her to stand beside him. They chose her to stand behind him. Click. The screen faded, then flared. 2004 internal memo. Melania Asset Assessment. This was written 13 months before the wedding, Denzel said, tone sharpened. It wasn't a love letter. It was a business brief. Bullet points. Strengths, weaknesses, liabilities. Liabilities: no strong political voice, minimal network influence, not independently ambitious. This wasn't cruel because of the words. It was cruel because of how early it was written. He paused. Their choice wasn't about love. It was about optics. Click. Portraits of first ladies. Michelle Obama, Laura Bush, Hillary Clinton, all with platforms. Then Melania, always behind, always pristine, always silent. Internal White House emails appeared. Float is not critical to messaging. Limit exposure to ceremonial roles. Keep Melania soft, elegant. No political lean. Eyes only, no voice. She wasn't included. She was edited. Not a partner, but a set piece. A decorative fiction built to sell. She was hired to smile, not to speak. She agreed. Click. The screen dimmed. Then Denzel laid down the final folder. Bold, undeniable letters. Access Hollywood. She was leaving, Denzel said, voice low, sharp. And they knew it. October 7th. The tape drops. October 8th. Melania cancels every public appearance. October 9th. Mar-a-Lago flight manifest. The world was told migraines. But this document wasn't an apology. It was a settlement offer. Increased estate shares, a deed to a Lake Geneva estate, a private custodial trust in Barron's name, and most importantly, a clause forcing her to remain visible until after the election. She didn't stay because of belief. She stayed because the cost of leaving was everything. Her child, her name, her leverage. This wasn't forgiveness. It was surrender, traded for leverage. She didn't stay for America. She stayed for clause. The screen dimmed. If a first lady's loyalty is for sale, what else in that house was on the market? Trump exploded. Lies. All lies. She loved me. She still does. Denzel didn't blink. He watched Trump unravel. Then he walked to the evidence board. One document. Marital insurance rider. Private negotiation terms. Trump family office, 2015. If it was love, Denzel said, voice like a blade slicing silk, then explain why you insured a marriage. A sharp gasp cut through the room. This was drafted 2 years before the Access Hollywood tape. He pointed calmly at the final clause. If Subject 1, Melania Trump, initiate separation prior to November 9th, 2016, Donald J. Trump shall be entitled to recoup 67% of distributed estate transfers and remove Subject 1 from all future endorsements tied to the Trump legacy campaign. That, Denzel said, slow and unforgiving, isn't affection. That's risk management. He walked back to the center. Insurance is for things you expect to break, not for people you expect to do love. He spoke directly to the country. You don't insure something you trust. You insure what you expect to lose. Click. A woman's silhouette appeared. Distorted voice. I worked in the Trump household from 2006 until 2017. My job was caring for Barron. But I learned care wasn't a word used in that house. What they valued was control. She didn't hold Barron unless the cameras were there. When she did, it was rehearsed. It wasn't motherhood. It was theater. She looked trapped, like a prisoner in Chanel. Denzel faced the screen. Thank you for speaking when silence was safer. He turned to the room. We're told that women in power chose this. They knew the price. But what if the choice was survival? What if the smile was armor? What if the silence was survival? What if the gilded cage was the only way to stay alive? He stepped up. This is not privacy. This is power. This is the kind of power that treats women as collateral, that buys devotion, that rents love, that leases motherhood. What is legacy if it teaches boys that names matter more than nurture? Denzel pointed behind him at an image of a small boy next to a velvet podium. This is what power wants. He didn't ask for any of this, Denzel said, voice sinking. He didn't choose to be a legacy or a brand or a prop in someone else's power game. And yet here we are, watching as affection becomes currency, as motherhood is broken like a business deal, and as a child becomes collateral. He opened the final envelope. Control is protection. Silence is survival. Denzel repeated it. slower, like sealing a verdict. This wasn't marriage. It was containment. He turned to America. This contract didn't just silence a woman. It labeled a child. It constructed a lie. It sold a nation, a fantasy packaged in gold trim and in empty promises. He locked the case. The brass clasp sounded like a closing door. He pulled down the final photo from the evidence board. A little boy, a tight red tie strangling childhood. Maybe we've been asking the wrong question, Denzel said, his voice dropping low enough to make the world lean in. It was never about love or loyalty. A pause. It was always about control. And who gets to keep it after the cameras stop rolling? Outro music begins to swell, thoughtful and lingering.